If you ever see a rule written in a place where no one should be leaving rules, don't assume it's a joke, because whoever put it there isn't trying to scare you. They're trying to keep you from doing something very specific. And if you ignore it, you won't notice anything at first. That's how it gets you. The paper showed up 3 days after I moved in. No one talked about it. No one mentioned it. It was just there, taped to the wall, right at the entrance of the staircase, slightly crooked, like someone had put it up in a hurry. A plain white sheet, edges curling a little, the kind of cheap paper you wouldn't even look at twice, except for what was written on it. In simple black text, it said, "Never stop in the middle of the staircase." That was it. No explanation, no signature, no warning underneath. Just the rule. I remember staring at it for a few seconds the first time I saw it, not because it scared me, but because it felt unnecessary. Who writes something like that? It wasn't creepy in an obvious way. It didn't try too hard. It didn't say anything dramatic like, "or else." It just stated something oddly specific, like a building instruction or a maintenance note. It felt out of place, and because of that, I laughed it off. I assumed it was a prank, maybe someone in the building trying to mess with new tenants, or just bored. People do weird things when they have too much time. I didn't think about it again. The staircase itself didn't help. It was one of those closed, boxed-in stairwells with no windows, just concrete walls on all sides, painted a dull off-white that had started to yellow over time. A single bulb on each landing cast weak, uneven light that never fully reached the corners. There was always a faint humming sound, not loud, just constant, like the building itself was quietly breathing. The first time it happened, I didn't even remember the rule. That's the part that bothers me the most, because if I'd remembered it, maybe I wouldn't have stopped. I was coming back late, around 10:30 p.m., carrying groceries, my hands full and the plastic bags digging into my fingers. I was already irritated because I had forgotten milk. I pushed open the stairwell door and stepped inside. The paper was still there, but I didn't even look at it. I climbed the first flight, then the second, and halfway between the second and third floor, I stopped. Not for any reason I can explain. I didn't drop anything, I didn't hear anything, and I wasn't tired. My body just paused, like something interrupted me mid-motion. I stood there on that exact step, staring at the wall in front of me. The light above flickered slightly, that same low hum filling the space around me, and for a moment, I felt empty. Not scared, not confused, just hollow, like I'd forgotten something important, but couldn't figure out what it was. It lasted maybe 5 seconds, maybe less. Then I shook it off and continued up. Nothing happened. No sound, no movement, no shadow, nothing chasing me, nothing watching me. Just a normal staircase. When I passed the paper again the next morning, that's when it hit me. Never stop in the middle of the staircase. I paused at the bottom, reading it again, and this time it didn't feel like a joke, because I had already broken it. I told myself it didn't matter. It was just coincidence, a weird moment, that's all. So I ignored it again. But when I started walking down the stairs, something felt different. Everything was normal until I reached that same spot, the exact step where I had stopped. My foot slowed, not intentionally, it just hesitated, like my body didn't want to place weight there. It wasn't fear, not yet, just resistance. A quiet, instinctive discomfort, like touching something you know is harmless but still feels wrong. I forced myself to keep moving, and the moment I passed it, the feeling disappeared. That's when I realized something. Passing that spot felt normal, but stopping there didn't feel like an option anymore. Over the next few days, it kept happening. Every time I crossed that point, I felt it again, stronger each time, subtle but persistent. And every time I entered the stairwell, I started noticing the paper. It hadn't changed. Same words, same crooked angle, same cheap tape barely holding it in place. But now it didn't feel like a joke anymore. It felt like something I had missed the first time, A rule that only mattered after you broke it. I should have left it alone. That would have been the smart thing to do. Just follow the rule and move on. But curiosity is a strange thing. It doesn't feel like danger. It feels like control, like if you test something enough, you'll understand it. So I decided to stop there again. Not by accident this time, but on purpose. I waited until late, around 11 p.m., when the building was completely quiet. No voices, no footsteps, nothing behind the walls, just that same low electrical hum in the stairwell. I stepped inside. The paper was still there, and this time I looked at it properly. Never stop in the middle of the staircase. I remember thinking, what happens if I do? I started climbing slowly. First flight, then second. As I got closer, I could feel it again, that resistance. But this time it wasn't subtle. My chest tightened, my breathing felt uneven, and my fingers curled slightly, like my body was bracing for something I couldn't see. I reached the step, that exact one, and I stopped. Nothing happened at first. I stood there, forcing myself to stay still, my eyes fixed on the wall ahead as the dim yellow light cast uneven shadows across the concrete. 1 second, 2, 3, then something changed. Not around me, inside me. That hollow feeling came back, but deeper, heavier, like the air itself had thickened. A faint ringing filled my ears, high-pitched and sharp, layered over the soft hum of the lights. My heart started pounding, not fast, just loud, too loud, like it didn't belong inside my chest anymore. And then the thought came, clear, precise, not in my voice. You're not supposed to be here. I froze, every muscle locked. It didn't feel imagined. It didn't feel like something I thought. It felt placed, like something had carefully set those words inside my head. I moved immediately. No hesitation, no thinking. I walked fast up the stairs, my footsteps echoing louder than they should have. I didn't run, but I wanted to. I didn't look back, and I didn't stop until I reached my apartment door. That night, I couldn't sleep properly. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it again. That exact step, that same spot, like my mind was stuck there, waiting. The next morning, I made a decision. I wouldn't stop there again. Not because I was scared, but because it didn't feel like a suggestion anymore. It felt like a rule, and I had already broken it twice. That's when things started getting worse, because once you notice a rule, you start noticing the others. It began 3 days later. I was heading down the stairs, running late again, barely paying attention. I passed the middle point quickly, didn't stop, didn't even slow down. And just as my foot left that step, I heard it. A footstep right behind me, perfectly timed. Exactly where I had stopped that first night. I turned around instantly. The staircase was empty, silent, but the feeling wasn't. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was alone in the stairwell. And that's when something clicked, something I wish I had understood earlier. It wasn't the staircase that had the rule. It was whatever was on it, and I had already gotten its attention. Continued. After that night, I stopped thinking of it as a coincidence, but I also didn't want to admit what it actually was. So I did something simple, something safe. I followed the rule. I made sure I never stopped in the middle again, not even for a second, not even by accident. If I had to check my phone, I did it at the landing. If I needed to adjust something in my bag, I waited until I reached a floor. Every movement became intentional, controlled, measured, and for a couple of days it worked. The feeling was still there, that subtle resistance when I passed that step. But it didn't get worse. The air didn't feel heavier, the voice didn't come back, and most importantly, I didn't hear that footstep again. That should have been enough. But the problem with rules like that is that they don't feel complete. They feel like part of something larger. I noticed it on the 4th day. The paper had changed. Not completely, not enough that someone else would notice. But I did. There was something added to it. Same sheet, same crooked tape, same plain black text. But underneath the original line, there was another one. Do not look behind you when descending. I stood there longer than I should have, reading it again and again. I didn't hear anyone come in. I didn't see anyone leave. There was no sound of footsteps or doors opening, just a new rule. My first instinct was to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it felt ridiculous. It had to be a person, someone in the building messing with me, adding lines just to see if anyone would notice. That explanation made sense. It felt safe. So I accepted it. And then I broke it. Not immediately, but sooner than I should have. It happened that same evening. I was heading down the stairs again, slower this time, more aware. My eyes were fixed ahead, deliberately not thinking about the paper. I crossed the second floor, then reached the middle point and passed it without stopping. And just as I stepped beyond it, I felt it. Not heard, not seen. Felt. A presence behind me, close, closer than before. It wasn't a sound or movement. It was something positional, like your body suddenly becomes aware of someone standing too close behind you, even if they haven't touched you yet. Every instinct I had told me to turn around. So I did, slowly, carefully. I turned my head and saw nothing. The staircase was empty. Same dim light, same quiet hum. But the feeling didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. Because now it felt like it had moved, not away from me, closer. I went down the rest of the stairs faster than usual, not running, but close enough that my steps felt uneven. The moment I pushed the door open and stepped outside, the feeling disappeared completely, like it couldn't follow me out. That's when I realized something. The rules weren't suggestions. They were boundaries, and I had just crossed another one. That night I checked the paper again. It hadn't changed, still just 2 rules, but something about it felt different, heavier, like it wasn't just a piece of paper anymore, like it was being updated. I stopped sleeping properly after that, not because of nightmares, not because of sounds, but because of something worse. Anticipation. Every time I closed my eyes, I thought about the staircase, the middle step, the space behind me. And slowly, I started noticing more things. Things that didn't make sense before, like the timing of footsteps. At first, it only happened once, then twice, then every day. Always the same pattern. I would be walking down the stairs, I would pass the middle point, and then, one step behind me, perfectly synced. If I walked faster, it walked faster. If I slowed down, it slowed down, but it never overtook me. It stayed exactly one step behind. Always, I tested it. One afternoon, I stopped suddenly at the landing, not the middle, a safe place. The sound stopped too, instantly, like it didn't exist unless I was moving. I waited, listened, heard nothing. Then I took one step down and heard it again, right behind me, perfectly timed. That's when the thought came back. Not as clear as before, not as direct, but still there. Keep moving. I didn't look back again after that, not because of the rule, but because I understood something now. Looking didn't make it go away. It just brought it closer. The third rule appeared 2 days later. I didn't see it being added. It was just there. If you hear footsteps matching yours, do not change your pace. That one made my stomach drop, because I had already broken it. Multiple times. I'd sped up, slowed down, tested it, and whatever was behind me had adjusted perfectly, like it was learning me. Or worse, matching me. After that, the staircase stopped feeling like part of the building. It felt like something separate, a place with its own rules, its own logic, and something inside it that was getting closer every time I made a mistake. I started avoiding it, taking longer routes, timing my movements so I wouldn't have to use it when it was quiet. But that only worked for so long. Because no matter what I did, I still had to pass through it. And every time I did, it felt like it was waiting. Not chasing, not rushing, just waiting. For me to break the next rule. And the worst part was, I had a feeling there weren't just 3. By the time the 4th rule appeared, I already knew I wasn't going to like it. I saw it late at night, around 12:15. I hadn't planned on going out, but I couldn't sleep again. That same restless feeling had been building for hours, like something was waiting for me to notice it. So I stepped out, walked to the stairwell, and there it was. Same paper, same crooked tape, but now it had 4 lines. Do not let it get closer than 1 step. I didn't move for a long time, because that wasn't a rule. That was a warning, and it meant something had already changed. I hadn't noticed when. I hadn't felt it happen, but something that used to stay exactly 1 step behind me was now capable of getting closer. That realization sat heavy in my chest because I had already made too many mistakes, and I had no way of knowing how close it actually was. I should have stayed in my apartment that night. But fear doesn't always make you avoid things. Sometimes it pulls you toward them. I stepped into the stairwell. The air felt different immediately, not heavier, not colder, just occupied, like walking into a room where someone had been standing in silence for a long time. I started climbing. First flight. Second. I didn't rush, didn't slow down, kept my pace steady, careful, measured. Every step felt deliberate. And then I heard it. A step behind me, perfectly timed, same as before, but this time something was wrong. It sounded closer, not by much, not enough that anyone else would notice, but I did. Because it didn't echo the same way. It didn't sound like it was landing on the same step behind mine. It sounded like it was landing sooner, half a step sooner. My chest tightened instantly. I kept walking, didn't change my pace, didn't look back. But my mind was racing. I didn't break the rule. So why was it closer? The answer came quietly. Because it learned. I swallowed hard and kept moving. I reached the middle point, that exact step. I didn't stop, didn't hesitate. But as I passed it, the step behind me came faster, closer, not matching anymore, closing in. My breathing started to break, short and uneven, but I forced myself to stay steady. Step, step, step. Behind me, step closer, step closer. I could feel it now, not just a presence, something there, right behind me, so close that if I slowed down even slightly, it would reach me. And then I made a mistake. A small one, so small it didn't even feel like breaking a rule. I hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. But it was enough, because the step behind me didn't hesitate. It caught up. For the first time, the sound didn't come from behind me. It came from the same step I was on. At the same time, my entire body went cold. I kept moving. I had to, because I understood something now. If it reached me completely, there wouldn't be another rule. I reached the landing. The sound stopped instantly. Gone, like it had never been there, but I didn't feel safe, because now I knew how close it could get. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat in my room, staring at the door, replaying every step over and over again, every mistake, every hesitation. And then something hit me. The rules weren't being added randomly, they were being added after I broke them. Every line on that paper was something I had already done wrong, and the rules weren't there to protect me, they were there to tell me what it had learned. The next morning, I forced myself to check the paper again. There was a 5th line. If it reaches your step, do not acknowledge it. My chest tightened, because that had already happened, which meant it wasn't warning me, it was correcting me. Too late. That's when I noticed something else, the handwriting. It wasn't printed, it only looked like it. Each line had tiny differences, like someone was rewriting it again and again, trying to keep it identical, updating it, learning. And then it hit me, no one else had reacted to it. No one had mentioned it. No one had taken it down, which meant I might have been the only one who could see it. That night, I heard footsteps outside my apartment door. Not walking, not passing, just standing there, 1 step away, perfectly still, waiting. And for the first time, there was no rule telling me what to do next. If this felt real, that's because it was almost real. I'll see you in the next memory.